Hey everyone, welcome to the installment of Harry Potter Theory. Yes, you read the title right. In this video, we're going to be exploring the Harry Potter theory that Argus Filch, Hogwarts caretaker and resident Squib, is in fact related to Dolores Umbridge, possibly the worst thing to happen to Harry Potter since Vernon Dursley. Argus Filch was born sometime before the year 1951, and while we don't have an exact date, I think that this feels somewhat accurate. Filch is an intriguing character, and there isn't much information available on Filch's history. All we know about him is that he was born in the British Isles, and that he had one magical parent. Despite having magical parentage on one side, Filch was born a Squib. In the year 1968, Filch went on to assume the role of Hogwarts caretaker, succeeding the previous caretaker, Apollyon Pringle. Filch has been roaming the halls of Hogwarts ever since. However, Filch doesn't roam the hallways alone. He does it with his trusty feline companion, Mrs. Norris. Together, they are always on the lookout for students breaking the rules. Filch is quite a misunderstood character, and he's mostly glossed over in the films. He's painted in a very negative light, almost as if he is evil. But in reality, Filch is just bitter. He was born a non-magical man into a magical world, which I expect would be exceptionally difficult. And though he doesn't hate the students, he does love to give them a hard time, which I suppose we can just let him have. Filch doesn't really seem to get along with anyone, except for Mrs. Norris. The two are never apart, except for when they've temporarily decided to scout out different areas of the school. They seem to have a quasi-telepathic connection. However, in the Order of the Phoenix, Filch suddenly appears to have a positive relationship with another person, Dolores Umbridge. It couldn't be a more unlikely pairing. Dolores is an extremely prejudiced advocate of blood purity, and Filch is a half-blood Squib. But oddly enough, the pairing of Filch and Umbridge during the period that she worked at Hogwarts actually seemed appropriate. Dolores Umbridge was a British half-blood witch, born sometime before the year 1965. Before 1965 is a bit vague, but that's all we're given. So she could have been 31 when starting at Hogwarts, or 61. It's quite unclear. She was born in the British Isles to one magical and one muggle parent. Her father was a wizard by the name of Orford Umbridge. Her mother was a muggle named Ellen Cracknell, and her younger brother's name is never actually revealed. Dolores' family life was complicated, and her family became a huge source of shame for her. Her father, Orford, was a floor mopper at the Ministry of Magic, where Dolores would later work. When she was questioned, on occasion, about her relationship to the floor mopper at the Ministry, she would vehemently deny any connection with him. In fact, it's later revealed that those who did question her identity, or her father's, almost always had nasty things happen to them. Nasty things tended to happen to people who asked about Orford, or anything that Dolores did not like talking about, and people who wanted to remain on her good side pretended to believe her version of her ancestry. I'm sure you can imagine what a terrible person like Umbridge would think of a floor mopper. However, Dolores wasn't the root cause of all of the issues in her family, as her father openly blamed her mother for birthing a Squib. The fact that their family had a Squib was shameful for him as well, and eventually caused the family to go separate ways. Ellen, Dolores' mother, moved back to the Muggle world with her son, and Orford remained in the magical world with Dolores. However, it's worth noting that this divide didn't happen until Dolores was 15 years old, so she would have known both her mother and brother quite well before the family split up. Okay, so Dolores Umbridge's brother was a Squib and he's never named. Filch is a Squib and his parents are never named. Do you see what I'm getting at? Yes, there are some holes in this theory, but I think that it has some merit. Bear with me. In the 1995 to 1996 school year, Dolores Umbridge was placed back at Hogwarts by the Ministry of Magic. First, she worked as the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor, as well as the Hogwarts High Inquisitor. Then, after some time, she replaced Albus Dumbledore, as the Ministry was convinced that Dumbledore was acting mad. During her time at Hogwarts, she had enormous power over the students, teachers, curriculum, and grounds. For the duration that she was there, she made the lives of the students increasingly miserable. She did everything wrong. She would conduct unreasonable and abusive punishments, and she would speak to all of the students and staff members condescendingly. That is, except for one man, Filch. Filch, like Umbridge, took pleasure in punishing students for their misdeeds. He wasn't quite as evil or sinister as Umbridge, but he was certainly a little bit deranged. and this quote highlights his similar nature. I bet you'll think twice about breaking a school rule again, won't you, eh? Oh yes, hard work and pain are the best teachers, if you ask me. It's just a pity they let the old punishments die out, hang you by your wrists from the ceiling for a few days. I've got the chains still in my office. Keep them well oiled in case they're ever needed. Right, off we go. And don't think of running off now. It'll be worse for you if you do. Filch was clearly not opposed to corporal punishment, and we see the same sort of punishment administered by Umbridge in the I will not tell lies scene in the Order of the Phoenix. Deep down, you know that you deserve to be punished, don't you, Mr. Potter? Gives you shivers, doesn't it? They both loved rules, and I'm sure you'll remember Umbridge's educational decrees, which basically forbid students from doing anything. Educational decrees at the school were essentially laws created by the Ministry of Magic that enforced standards at the school. The introduction of educational decrees was instigated by Umbridge, and it allowed her and the Ministry to begin to expel and punish students for actions that would have previously been fine. And while it's glossed over, Filch actually implemented similar sorts of rules, at least when he could and when it was within his power. The following quote from Dumbledore supports this. So, now that we are all fed and watered, I must once more ask for your attention while I give out a few notices. Mr. Filch, the caretaker, has asked me to tell you that the list of objects forbidden inside the castle has this year been extended to include screaming yo-yos, fanged frisbees, and ever-bashing boomerangs. The full list comprises some 437 items, I believe, and can be viewed in Mr. Filch's office if anybody would like to check it. It was truly their shared enjoyment in punishing students that helped Fudge and Umbridge to bond. However, I did notice that they seemed to get along almost instantaneously. There was definitely a bit of an unusual dynamic, and Filch clearly respected that Umbridge was his superior, but they got along very well anyway, and it almost seemed as if they already knew each other. So, did they? My theory is that Umbridge's unnamed brother is none other than Argus Filch. First of all, I think that this may be one of the only reasons that Umbridge was able to tolerate Filch. She was extremely prejudiced, but somehow, Filch, a Squib, slipped under her radar in that respect. It's as if they knew each other already and had some kind of rapport. Umbridge and her brother, who has never been named, lived together for 15 years, so it would only make sense that they had some kind of relationship. We know that Dolores had a younger brother, and the film portrayal of Filch seems to suggest that he's older, but in reality, we don't actually know the birth year of either of these characters. Both have undefined birth dates in Harry Potter canon, which means that Umbridge could very well be older than Filch. Additionally, Filch is a Squib and has lived a bit of a hard life, which could have potentially taken a bit of a toll on his physical appearance. Umbridge, though awful, is very prim and proper, and probably takes care of herself quite well. I just can't ignore the fact that these characters are A. similar, B. got along, and C. have grey areas in their family history. It may be a bit of a stretch, but I really think that there is a reasonable amount of evidence to support the theory that they are in fact related. What do you guys think? Are Filch and Umbridge related? Am I missing something here? Let me know down in the comment section below. Until next time, you're a wizard, Harry.